Hey guys, good morning. You can take a seat. Glad you're here. My name is Drake. I am the pastor here. It's an honor to have you gathering with us. How you doing? Merry Christmas. It's like almost here. That's wild. Hey, we're like very clappy and responsive today. What's up? No coffee and you're more responsive than normal? I'm digging it. Okay, we'll see if it continues during the message, but I'm really glad you're here. In person and online, I'm really grateful to be gathering with you. 'Tis the season where you never know what you're going to get here in Boulder, as like half of the people that live in Boulder or more don't actually, they're not from here, and so people start traveling. So Christmas Eve is next week, and it's an awesome service, and God really uses it as an impact in an invitational space for our city. It's a really beautiful time to share the good news and to worship and to celebrate. But also, over half our church is gone every Christmas Eve, which is awesome. And so this room is just filled with strangers. It's so much fun. And so if you're going to be in town, man, we can't wait to celebrate with you. You can also watch online with your family, grab candles, the whole shebang. Bath & Body Works, I heard, is doing a sale right now. So, whatever it takes, gather around the TV with some candles and join us for a candlelight. We're glad to have you. Okay, hey, excited to get into our message today. We've been in this series, The New Family of Jesus. And you can go back on our podcast, our YouTube channel, and catch those messages. And they have a really intentional focus of just stepping into what is the church? What is Jesus building? How do we live this thing out together as the new family of Jesus in Boulder in 2024? And it's been really helpful up to this point. And the last week and now this week, kind of taking a moment and taking that same thread, but moving it into the role that we play as individuals within the context of communities. We talked about all the role of community, the need for it, how Jesus invites us into that, and how it all works together. But now it's, okay, as an individual participant in community, how do I bring the best that I have and let God work in and through me? And so last week we picked it up, and then we're going to continue in that thread today. But before I get into that, I have a couple of quick announcements for you. First of all, if you're a first-time guest with us, so glad that you're here. Our mission here at City Church is to help people find their way to God from where they are. So what that means is no matter where you are on your spiritual journey, you're loved, you're safe, you're welcome. We're so glad you're here. Our desire is to meet you where you are and help you take some next steps toward Jesus. And so we hope that you find all of those things to be true of your experience, not just in our weekend gatherings, but in the people that you meet before and after the service and any of the next steps available to you. So as we talk today, I have a really exciting announcement for you. We have our City Church Christmas offering happening through the month of December. That's exciting, right? Yes. Hey, so really quick, if you're a guest or you're new to City Church, this is not directly for you. You're more than welcome to participate in this. We absolutely believe in the impact of generosity. Jesus' words, not mine, are, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." And you don't need to be a rocket scientist or even a Jesus follower to know that sentiment is true. Very rarely have I held on my entire life to the things that I have received, but I can consistently remember the joy attached to what I have given away, whether it's my time, energy, or resources. So just really quick, this is kind of a family update, but again, if you're new to City Church, you're more than welcome to participate, but don't get weird about money. By the way, I talked to a lot of people about apprenticing our lives under Jesus, and some people just get really weird when the church talks about money, and I think it's this idea that the church only wants your money, which is just not true, but also Jesus is absolutely interested in your whole life, and 25% of Jesus' teachings in the New Testament scriptures are on money. So can you imagine if every fourth week here at City Church we had a message on financial generosity and stewardship and giving and all of that? This church would be busting at the seams, right? People would just be flocking to weekend gatherings, or you'd never come back. Either way, it is my privilege to point you and our hearts together as a community in the direction of Jesus. And so I want to celebrate something really briefly. Our City Church Christmas offering is unique. We have lots of people who give on a consistent, regular, monthly basis that help us do what we do here at City Church. So from the beginning of City Church starting, 10% of every dollar that's ever come into City Church goes right back out the doors to church planting and missions around the world. So we have 10 global partners in all kinds of different varieties, from feeding centers to church planters to missions organizations to working in sex trafficking to church plants in Chicago and in Denver. So, God's doing amazing things all over the world, and we're glad to partner with those things. And because of your generosity, 10% of our budget just goes to them automatically. So put your hands together. That's awesome. Super cool. So our Christmas offering comes along and it beefs up what we already do. So the 10% is already dedicated. It happens regardless, right? You fill out one of those connection cards and we give an additional $5 on top of the support we send to our feeding center. Does that make sense? Meaning we don't have the budget to do it, but we honor you being here today by giving another $5 just for saying, hey, thanks for being here. That's awesome. Okay, so that stuff's happening consistently. But our Christmas offering comes along, and our desire is to double the support that we give to all of our global partners, and that offering helps with that. That's pretty cool, right? So our goal this year is to raise $20,000 between now and the end of the year for this City Church Christmas offering in order to fund things like that, as well as all of the generosity initiatives you see here in our city. Everything from serving our local schools and first responders to our community nights where we rent out a local bar and pay for drinks and let people build community and help them say, hey, this Jesus thing is pretty cool, and all the other varieties in between. So this Christmas offering just comes alongside our existing budget and allows us to do even more in Boulder, the West, and the world. You tracking with me? Okay, that's awesome. Now, the good news, or the gooder news, is that this year we have someone that's come along that's connected to this family and said, hey, we love your church, love the mission, love the vision, and we feel like God wants us to come along and provide a matching donation for the Christmas offering this year. So, for every dollar that is given toward the Christmas offering in the month of December, for every dollar given, it's going to be matched up to $20,000. Is that bananas or what? Come on, put your hands together. That's exciting. Holy moly. So my family and I were praying, asking God how he wants us to participate, how much we're going to give. And it's already more than I had planned on giving. And so that's cool, trusting God with that. And that's the same invitation for you today. If you call City Church home, it's just to ask God, hey, how would you like us to be a part? How would you like me to be a part? If you would like me to be a part, and if so, how? I want to just give you a cool note, something that's come up in light of this opportunity, is just right off the bat in January, once this offering comes in, if we can meet our goal of $20,000, that'll be matched up to $40,000, which is awesome. Just in January, we're going to send $5,000 to one of our partners in Central Asia. They have a church planting training. Many of you know they planted over 10,000 churches in the last 10 years over there. They've seen over 1 million people saved and baptized, which is bananas. And God is doing amazing stuff in the Central Asia area. And so we're going to come alongside them and send them $5,000, which funds one church planting training. And so they're going to train, I believe it's 40, I might have my numbers wrong. It's either 35 or 40 church planters that they then send out into areas, and each of those church planters plant 5 churches over the next 5 years. Which is crazy. And they do it. It's not like they hope so. Like, they just do it. And we've planted one church in 5 years. So, woohoo! And so, listen, just off the bat, like, we ask God, hey, God, how do you want to steward this gift that you've given us, the opportunity to see our Christmas offering go from $20,000 to $40,000? And the first thing just out the box is, hey, fund a church planting training. So that's pretty cool, yeah? Yeah, that's very cool. So, hey, thank you for your generosity ahead of time. It's a privilege to have a generous church that we get to partner with that impacts Boulder, the West, and the world. Just to give you a little bit of insight into this, when we say we want to help people find their way to God from where they are by practicing the way of Jesus together in Boulder, when we say that, what it means is we have a crazy, wild, deep commitment to helping you figure out how your faith intersects with your entire life. Like we want to help you navigate what it means to practice the way of Jesus in Boulder together alongside others. And so you know this of our city. Most people come to Boulder, Colorado for play primarily, and then work and or school is attached to it also. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, something got me here, but really it's the mountains in Boulder that is the reason that I'm here. And so with the transients that we experience in our city, we have a desire, and then kind of the draw to the mountains itself, we have a desire to come alongside you and equip you to have a kingdom vision of your life, that your life is more than play. And that your life is more than climbing the ladder of success and aspirations that the world around you says is important. That there is more that God has for you. There's a kingdom vision that includes play, that includes delight, that includes rest, that includes joy, but it's way deeper and more profound and more impactful than the one the American dream has on for sale. Would you agree? Yes, okay, so I just want you to know that like when we talk about our Christmas offering, it is for the effort of doing more of what we're already doing, okay? So, just some stats from last year. Our goal last year was $10,000 for the Christmas offering, and because of the radical generosity of this church, we raised $13,000 last year for that impact. Put your hands together. That's amazing. Holy moly. Now, here's what I want you to know. There's about 150 people that call City Church home on a monthly basis. Stats currently are that a good church attender in America, whatever that means, a good church attender in America attends 1 out of 4 Sundays. So, again, you come 4 weeks in a row here at City Church, and you kind of get a glimpse of this community of who all call City Church home. By the way, most of you are crushing that stat, just so you know. I mean, in Boulder here in this season, very few people, you're crushing it. So put your hands together. Way to go. I'm in a very clappy mood, so just get loose up, okay? Come on, let's go. Here's what I need you to know, though. $13,000 was raised last year, which is amazing, but that $13,000 was given by 23 people. Isn't that crazy? First of all, how awesome. Go 23 people, right? That's amazing. But then also like, whoa, right? That's the impact of 23 people. So just so you know, just giving you perspective, out of the 150 people that call City Church home, the invitation is not to, hey, you feel a little bit of guilt and shame, so you should give. Not at all, not at all. As we apprentice our lives under Jesus, my invitation is for you to ask him what he wants you to do, and then you do it, right? That's it. That's all I'm asking you to do. But I want you to have those stats because I believe that a $20,000 goal is actually incredibly feasible for this community, maybe even more. And we have a privilege, a really strong leadership team that tries to steward all of what we have really well for Boulder, the West, and the world, okay? So I hope that you feel like you can trust this community and that you have the opportunity to turn your heart outward in a time of consumerism and materialism. So here's Jesus' promise from the scriptures that whoever sows generously will reap generously. So for the 23 people last year, like never have I given ever in my entire life, and this is probably true for you, toward Jesus and anything that he's doing around the world and regretted it. Not one time in my entire life, and I've given a lot in a lot of different ways. And so Jesus made it clear, where your treasure is, there your heart is also. So one of the benefits of giving here in this community, no matter what it is, all of it makes a difference, is that we begin to connect our hearts to what God is doing. Right? If you have investments, you watch the stock market, right? Like if you have a brand new car, you park at the end of the Safeway parking lot because you know that every car parking spot in Boulder's half the size of a real car, and everyone also doesn't know how to open a door. So you just bing, 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 so what do, right? Everything that you have an investment in, you are really attentive to and you care for. Jesus said, where your treasure is, the things that you put value on, your heart follows. And so that's what generosity matters is we connect our heart, our whole lives to God's mission and his family here at City Church. So a couple of different pockets in the room, and then we're going to move on to the message. Some of you give monthly here at City Church, and I just want to say thank you to your generosity. Can we put our hands together for everyone that gives consistently? Seriously, we couldn't do what we do without you, and I just want to say thank you. And if you're like me, I've been apprenticing under Jesus since I was 15 years old. I was taught really early on to start trusting Jesus with my money, and it's been the biggest privilege of my life, and he has provided for me in miraculous ways more times than I can count. And for me, in this season of apprenticeship under my life, it's not do I give, but is my giving touching my heart? I have to ask that question a lot. Sometimes my giving can be so automatic, 10% just comes right off the top. I don't even think about it anymore. And I'm glad to do it, to invest in this community. But sometimes it's not touching my heart. And so then I ask God, hey, do you want to move this? Do we need to move the needle a little bit? Do we need to go to 11%? Do we need to go to 12%? Like whatever it is, or do I need to increase my Christmas offering? So Danielle and I were praying about that. So that'd be the invitation for you is, hey, just pay attention if you're a regular giver to what God is doing in your heart because you're already crushing it. We're really proud of you, and you're allowing God to steward that part of your life. Some of you don't give at all at this time, and this is just a simple invitation to consider what God might do in your heart through a one-time gift. Totally awesome to consider the Christmas offering for that purpose. And then secondly, some of you don't give consistently, but you give as you can. And so maybe the Christmas offering is an invitation to start a practice of generosity that you haven't started yet. And so I'm just inviting you to consider all of those things. Here's the simple invitation. Reflect on what God's done in your life through the impact of this community. Then pray about what he wants you to do. And then do it. That sound good to everybody? Awesome. Can't wait to see how God's going to use it. Put your hands together. It's going to be great. Okay, now we're off that bandwagon and on to the message today. Last week, I kicked off this kind of little pivot here with the song "A Thrill of Hope" out of "Oh Holy Night," and we kind of talked about this big idea. The song points to a thrill of hope, a weary world rejoicing, and you might not be super into Christmas music, and that's fine. But talking about the impact of a lot of the Christmas songs and how they relate to our lives. So last week, we talked about this Christmas season is supposed to bring a thrill of hope, right? But then sometimes, I don't know about you, but it kind of snuck up on me, and so I wasn't exactly in the Christmas feels just yet. And so we talked about a weary world rejoicing, that the idea of Jesus coming, born in the flesh to save humanity and heal our brokenness, both horizontally and vertically, is to bring a weary world rejoicing. But last week, we talked about how many people are simply carrying their lives in the weary version. Just kind of weary. There's not a lot of turning into rejoicing. There's just heaviness. And so if you missed it last week, I highly recommend, if I could give top 10 messages out of the year as far as how they touched my heart and my personal formation, last week was one of them, okay? And so you can go back and catch it on our podcast on the YouTube channel. Was it good for those of you that were here? Helpful? Yeah, it was good. Okay, very good. Mediocre. I'll take it. That's fine. And so listen. We talked about how most people's interior worlds cannot hold up under the pressure of the exterior things that we experience. And so we talked about how Jesus has made a way available for us to step into this reality. That was last week. Now, I gave some pictures last week, but this week, after last week's message, my hope is that you are now in this scenario right here. How many of you feeling it? Come on. If this is you, put your hands together. Come on. You went from the Grinch to, if you don't know the movie, this is that moment when his heart grows 3 times, and he's like, what is happening to me? I'm leaking. You know, like that's the moment. And then anyway. And so he looks at his dog, who he's mean to all the time, and he's like, I love you. Anyway, all right, very good. That's all I got. I'm not Jim Carrey, so don't judge me. But the goal is that some of you moved from kind of this weariness to a space of rejoicing, or at least got a vision in your heart for that. And this week, all I'm doing is moving that same conversation a little bit deeper into things that you and I can do every day to keep gaining access, to keep stepping into the life that Jesus has for us. So we sang a song just a moment ago, "O come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant." And then the refrain over and over again is, "O come, let us adore him." This is going to be where we sit today. "O come all ye faithful." This song is speaking to believers, that's the faithful, those who are following Jesus. "O come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant." And I'm just curious if those words would describe kind of the pattern of your week over the last 7 days. Do you feel like you've carried joy and you've been triumphing all week long? Or do you feel like you had your teeth kicked in, or life happened to you, or a little bit of both, and you had joy 1 minute and then it was sucked out the next? And so this song speaks to a reality that is meant to be present as we follow Jesus, and we're going to step into that today. So we're all invited to follow Jesus. We're all invited, and if you're not a follower of Jesus, you're invited to be among the faithful. And this is not a measure. God's not looking at you like, hey, how much do you give? How much do you come to church? How good are you? How many cuss words did you say this week? What did you do with your hands and your eyes? What did you not do? God's not judging your performance to see if you are counted among the faithful. We're going to look in just a moment about what does it mean to be counted among the faithful. When Jesus invites us to follow him, what is the invitation? That's what we're going to look at today. And so we talk about this often here at City Church, but what does it mean to follow Jesus? And this is so important. We've reframed this all the time because many of you and many of us have been exposed to versions of following Jesus that were either incomplete or actually wrong. And so there's many people who have heard of Jesus or have ideas of Jesus or been exposed to what it means to follow Jesus, and it's either lacking and incomplete or just totally out of step with what Jesus actually said. And so we spend a lot of time here at City Church defining what does it mean to be counted among the faithful, to follow Jesus. And here's what it means. Number 1, to be with Jesus. Jesus was a rabbi. He was the Son of God, stepped out of heaven to earth, God wrapped in flesh, absolutely Savior of the world. All of that stuff is true. But his invitation to follow him was as a rabbi. So apprentices, disciples would come under a rabbi. They would apprentice their entire lives under him. And the first invitation from a rabbi was to be with that rabbi. As in, apprentice your entire life. Everywhere he went, you went. How many of you guys have seen The Chosen? Anybody? Okay, cool. I'm like 2 episodes in, and I'm digging it so far. Jesus made his appearance. But it's cool. But to be with Jesus is literally to be with him in like where he eats and where he sleeps, everywhere he goes, you're with him. I want you to understand the first invitation from Jesus for you today is not religious performance. It's not how much you can give to a Christmas offering. It's not how good you were this week or what you didn't do or did do. It is being with him. It starts in relationship. That Jesus came to do for us what we can't do on our own. So the invitation is first relationship, but it doesn't stop there. It's not like, listen, there is a version of American Christianity that says believe in Jesus, go to heaven when you die, but in the meantime, do whatever you want with your life because it doesn't really have any bearing. And that's not at all what Jesus had in mind when he gives the invitation to follow him. So yes, it's be with Jesus, but from being with Jesus, you know this, the more you spend time with somebody, the more you start to act like them. Is that true? I had a friend in high school who had the most obnoxious laugh I have ever heard in my entire life. And if you're listening, Taylor, you know it, so it's fine. She thinks it's hilarious. I'm talking about like some combination of like a tule horn from India meets like a rooster and a pig. I don't know. I'm not even going to try to redo it for you because I'm just going to butcher it. But I mean, the most obnoxious, crazy laugh you could possibly imagine. And I remember we had some people in our friend group, and one time we're all hanging out, and Taylor's laugh, it was so loud, it's over everybody else. You could always tell it was Taylor. But then one time, someone else laughed like her, and I was like, what are you doing? How dare you try to laugh? Like, no one right? But you've been hanging out, and all of a sudden, I don't know, there's probably a little bit of manufacturing there, if we're being honest, because I don't know that could ever be natural. It's a supernatural gift that God has given her. But my point is, right, I'm like, all of a sudden, someone else is laughing like that. I'm like, dude, that is crazy. That's not how that works. Anyway, I don't know why we said that. Oh, being with Jesus. Okay, so, right, you become like who you hang out with. Okay, that was simple. Be with Jesus. But as you be with Jesus, what happens? You become like Jesus. And in becoming, internally and externally. So my heart is being shaped. My very soul, my person is being shaped. My minds, the things that I dwell on, the things that I think about, my reactions, my actions, they're all being shaped internally and externally to where I actually become the kind of person that eventually starts to do what Jesus did, right? So what does it mean to follow Jesus? It means to be with Jesus and become like Jesus and do what he would do if he were you. That's what it means. And so what I want you to understand is this is not a three-step process, right? This is not like do these things in this order and then bam, your Mother Teresa 2.0. That's not what we're after. But there is a progression here, that these things work in tandem, that relationship flows into formation, okay? So that's what we're going to look at today. Now, the temptation from last week and this week is to take what we have talked about and let it remain in only head knowledge. And it's challenging because head knowledge can be a good thing. You can agree with everything I've said over the last 2 weeks. You can even be inspired by it. But you and I both know that inspiration and head knowledge are not necessarily enough to move us into becoming the kinds of people that would do what Jesus did. And the stats are, right, January's around the corner, and the gym memberships are about to spike, and the stats are right around the corner. Everyone has good intentions that don't play out. So how do we actually become these, how do we not just let it be this moment of inspiration before we go out, just check out for the holidays? The danger is we can just receive this as head knowledge and inspiration, or like minimal practice only, as in you have one little thingy that you pick out over the last 2 weeks that you kind of latch onto and you incorporate it in your life, but it doesn't actually change anything else, compartmentalized. So, many of you don't know this, but I am a lethal weapon. This right here would be yours truly's very own first-degree black belt. Oh, yes. Look, my name's on it. Right there. Look at, huh? I didn't steal this from nobody, okay? I earned this with my own blood, sweat, and many tears. Okay. Let me give you an example. When I was in Taekwondo and we were like working toward a black belt, right? You have like, I don't know, 8 different belts or whatever. You start out with white, and so you get into it. And anybody ever done any kind of Taekwondo martial arts? Anybody? Okay. So some of you in the room, you're familiar with like early on, it starts with forms, right? And so everything's forms. It's like, it does not feel like you're a lethal weapon at all. You're like, you know, I mean, that's it, right? And like, you ever tried to bust one of those out in the middle of a fight at school? All right, so, right, I mean, it's just not, that's legit, okay? That was one of them. Anyway, so you learn these forms on the front end that are, they're meant to teach you discipline and structure, and the forms play into eventually becoming a lethal weapon, Bruce Lee 2.0. And I remember the day we bought all of our sparring gear, and we're doing these forms, and they seem kind of lame because they just don't feel like, you know, I've always been a small, skinny guy anyway, so I really want to have this in my back pocket. I really want someone to pick on me just so I can be like, whoa! But anyway, so, right, that's just a little bit of pride and arrogance going on as a young guy. I didn't know Jesus yet, so you can't judge me. Anyway, and so I'm training, and I'm really looking forward to kicking someone's butt, and I'm just letting you know, man, the guy, the master in the room, that guy could just do amazing things. I mean, just look at you and you got a broken bone. It was crazy. And he had an apprentice. Here's the crazy thing. He had an apprentice, he probably was in high school. I actually don't remember. He was way taller than I was and much older. And he was always there, and he was helping out in the trainings and all that. And we're all young kids, you know, like 10, 11, 12, stuff like that. And this other kid was also like really good. He was tall. He was skinny. He was in that teenage phase. But I mean, he could just wreck it. It was clear that all of us doing the forms, right, we couldn't really turn it into like actual fighting yet. But these other guys, like, they had learned how to beat up on somebody, right? Like, and to defend themselves. Sorry, that's the point. You're supposed to defend yourself. That's all we're doing in Taekwondo is self-defense. Anyway, and so there's this forms, and at some point they give you a helmet and some gloves, and they let you spar each other. Anybody ever done the sparring? Oh yeah, they're like, hey, you actually get to go hit that kid. You're like, yes! And so you get to kick them in their head and like punch them and all that stuff. It's super cool. Of course, you have mats on, but it's still fun. And that's when you begin to take the forms and some of the things you learned early on, like how to make a fist without breaking your fingers, and how to do a proper kick, and how to have power behind a kick where it actually makes a difference, and all these different things, and how to block properly so you don't get punched in the face. All of those things come real time in sparring. And then the master and his apprentice would do it, and I'm just telling you, like, it was always a world of difference. Now, one time I heard a story of the guy that was apprentice in high school. Again, he was tall and skinny. I'm not going to call him a nerd, but maybe he was, you know what I'm saying? I couldn't tell. But he was getting picked on, and apparently some kids jumped him at school. And the story came back that this dude put the hurt on them so bad. It was awesome. I was like, let's go. Like 3 against 1, and he took them on. It was awesome. Okay, long story short. I got a black belt, and so don't mess with me, okay? Actually, here's what I want you to know. This belt did not necessarily translate into me being a lethal weapon. I'm still eons away. I have some basic, I was looking it up. What does a black belt mean? Because it's kind of impressive. It's got little bars on it and stuff like that. It's got cool writing on it. I mean, this is pretty official. What does it mean to be a black belt? I was reading, and it says you have officially accomplished the first level of mastery, or like the first step to becoming a master. So you're not even a master yet. You just are pre-approved, right? Like you officially now have learned the competencies where you can start to train to become someone who can do some damage. And so I remember taking these, and all they are forms for me, right? They have no real impact. And so if we're being honest today, if I got in a fight, there might be a few things that, like, I have some basic fundamentals that might save my life, okay? But I'm not doing a 3-on-1 battle and winning in an alley. I'm just letting you know. It's probably not happening. And so, however, the master and his apprentice, I'm telling you, man, they could do it for real. And I think the reason I give you this example is that there's a big difference in the forms that you learn in Taekwondo and the sparring that you do with pads on and the real world. Would you agree? There are many people who have been exposed to and love the idea of the forms of Christianity, of the forms of following Jesus, and they have no idea how it applies to the real world. There's no version of actually seeing this thing work out when I'm in conflict at work or in a relationship. There's no way that I know how to apply this to my sexuality or my mind or my words or my habits or the things I'm trying to change. There's no way that I know how to apply this to my real life and my money and my pursuits and my desires. Most people love a form of following Jesus that never translates into how I actually live every day. Does that make sense? But isn't that the point? To connect the way of Jesus to how we actually live? Like, what good is it to have a form of Christianity that only kind of works when we gather as the church and has no bearing on our real life everywhere else? Is that what you're after? Because that's not what I want. That's not what I want. And I don't think it's what you want either. And so today I want to very simply solve the mystery for you that's not a mystery at all, of what it means to walk with God, to get a black belt in your relationship with Jesus, if you will. So let's go to Luke chapter 9. Let's look at Jesus' words today. Jesus said to them all, again, how do we count ourselves among the faithful, joyful and triumphant? Jesus said to them all, whoever wants to be my disciple. Whoever means whoever. No matter what's happened to you, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've done, no matter how long you've been stuck in forms and never applied it to your real life, no matter how long you've been disappointed and frustrated and seen no fruit, no matter how many baggages you carry from past hurts and all the hurdles that you feel like you have to get over, none of that is a prereq. Whoever means whoever wants to be my disciple. Here's Jesus' invitation. Must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world? Whatever that means for you. Think about all of the aspirations the world is trying to sell you right now. Every ad on Instagram and on Amazon and on Netflix and on Peacock, and every little ambition, every carrot in front of you at work, all the pressure that you feel around relationships, whether you're single or married or you have kids or you're single parenting or you're empty nesters. What good is it for you to gain the whole world, at least what's being presented out there, and yet lose or forfeit your very self? as in the person that God actually made you to be, the person that can live right now in the good life, now and forever, what good is it? Listen, friends, Jesus is not interested in you and I telling him what kind of disciple we're going to be. And that's one of the great misrepresentations of Jesus in the West. Jesus is not at all interested in you and I telling him what kind of disciple we want to be. He's the one that dictates the terms. Jesus makes an invitation. It's for whoever. And we get to make a decision. Whoever wants to be my disciple. It's not, your hand is not forced into relationship here. So sometimes the language of have you accepted, you might have heard this, have you accepted Jesus into your heart? That's sometimes like unclear language, accepted Jesus into your heart. That's like, you're the landlord and you gave Jesus the keys, but he's only got access to the basement, right? You're like, all right, this is where you're allowed to be. But the rest of these rooms, they're off limits, okay, Jesus? Like just right here. This. You can be a tenant. We're glad to have you. Keep things tidy. Help around the house sometimes, right? It sounds like we're the ones dictating the terms, but that's not at all what Jesus has in mind. Let's look at Jesus' invitation here. Number one, let's look at the frequency. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily. The frequency of following Jesus is one of daily apprenticing our lives under Jesus. As in, Jesus has no interest in only speaking to you when you gather in a weekend gathering like this or when you go to your city group. Daily is the frequency, as in when you're at school and when you're at work and when you're with your kids and when you're out for a jog and when you're going to grab coffee and when you're at the grocery store and when you're dealing with all of the family drama coming up. Like Jesus has the idea of daily frequency in our apprenticeship to him. Let's look at the direction. What is the direction of following Jesus? Well, it's Jesus himself, right? Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. So Jesus, we're not following, Oprah Winfrey or Martha Stewart or any of the other, self-help books you can walk into Barnes & Noble and pick up. Jesus is the one that we're following. He's the direction, right? So we take the scriptures and the life of Jesus and his church and church history, when we point our lives in that direction. Dallas Willard talks about letting our souls being oriented like a compass toward north all the time. We're trying to point our hearts and our minds and our souls in that direction. So daily is the frequency. Jesus is the direction. And what is our role? Whoever wants to be my disciple. Right? Jesus is the rabbi. Jesus is the master. We're the apprentice. We come under his forms. We come under his ways. We come under his authority, his thinking, his direction, his leadership, right? We're just parsing it out here. Now, look at the last invitation. It's amazing. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for me will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and lose or forfeit their very self, the one that God intends to flourish? What Jesus is hinting at here is discovery. He says you can spend your entire life scrambling to put and keep your life together. You can do it. Many people do. But at the end of your life, you're just going to lose it. You're going to have nothing to show for it. You have a life full of regrets. Or regrets, depending on how it went. You know what I'm talking about? Anybody? Tattoos? That's funny. Okay, it's okay. You can Google it later. No regrets. It's an invitation to discovery. Jesus says, if you will deny yourself, and by that, he's not, we'll talk about it more, but what he's getting at is your false self. The self that is promoted in the world around you. The self, that the mask that you put on, the ideals that you think you have to be, or your own aspirations. You put off that false stuff. Surrender to Jesus, and you're actually going to look up and find life everywhere you go. You surrender that false self and you start apprenticing your life under Jesus, and you're going to have eyes filled with wonder and triumph and rejoicing, and everywhere you go and everywhere you look, you will find life to the full. Jesus' words, not mine. And he's going to help you become who you were created to be. We talked about this last week. This is not a pipe dream. It doesn't mean life is easy. But there are people in the room who know what it's like to have life to the full in the middle of hardship. And there are people in the room that know what life is like just to be crumbling around you. So how do we do this? Wrap it up really quick. This is Bonhoeffer here, who I think beautifully sums up a simple invitation today that I'm going to give you. He says, we are silent early in the morning because God should have the first word. And we are silent before going to bed because the last word also belongs to God. Very simply, he's saying we want to give God the first and the last word of our day. Another way to say this is that there are many voices competing for your attention, outside and inside of you. But what would it look like for God's voice to be the loudest voice over your life every moment of every day? What would it look like to get a black belt in abiding in God's love? So let's really briefly look at the pattern of Jesus' life. This is Mark chapter 1. We see consistently, this is just one snapshot of Jesus' life. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. We see it's Jesus' rhythm to continually get away and be with the Father. And I want you to imagine you're an apprentice, like you're real time with Jesus, you're sleeping where he sleeps, you're eating where he eats, you're with him, and you hear some rustling, and it's like 4 a.m., and the sun's not out, and then you see Jesus leave the house that you're in, and he goes off, and you get up and you watch, and you see him go off to a solitary place, and he's just praying, and he's there for like an hour or hours, and you're a far way off, and you're watching Jesus just pray. And you're like, what is he saying? What is he doing? What is he talking about? What is he asking for? I mean, he's Jesus, right? Like, what can you possibly be doing, Jesus? You're Jesus. The day before, you saw him turn like 5 loaves and 2 fish and fed a couple thousand people. You saw him cast demons out of someone, and then you saw him raise someone from the dead. And now he's out praying in the morning? What are you doing, Jesus? Jesus is getting a black belt and abiding in the Father's love. Now, listen, Jesus wants the same for you. Look at John 15. We looked at this a couple of weeks ago. Jesus said, he loves the metaphor of vines and branches or trees, agriculture. I'm the vine, you're the branches, relationship, right? Branches are connected to the core of the tree. I'm the vine, you're the branches. If you remain in me, that word remain, it means to abide, to make your home in. Jesus, you don't just have the basement, you have full reign of the entire apartment. It's yours. If you remain or abide in me and I in you, it's relationship, you will bear much fruit. Again, fruit, the fruit that lasts, the fruit that matters, the fruit that makes a difference. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. The fruit that we love to see in others and we struggle to produce ourselves. The fruit of other people coming to know Jesus because of the life that we live with our words and our actions. Jesus says that, listen to this, apart from me, you can do nothing. He's the master, we're the apprentice. Not apart from me, you can't do great things. Not apart from me, you can't do significant things. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you're like a branch that's thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, they're thrown into the fire, they're burned, they're useless. They have another purpose at that point. If you remain in me, abide in me, and my words, what's true, what I speak over you from the scriptures and from the Spirit, if my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. Jesus is saying we can be so close that you're going to desire what I desire, and so when you ask for it, I'm going to give it to you. That's the invitation. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit. That you become the kind of person that is just leaking the Spirit of God everywhere you go. The fruit of the Spirit everywhere you go. Love, joy, and peace everywhere you go. This is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit. Showing yourselves the evidence of being my disciples. Right? Sitting in church. So it's interesting. Jesus doesn't say, you're going to show that you're my disciples by how many times you attend church on a monthly basis. Right? He's saying there's fruit that we're after. Listen to this. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. This is wild. This is crazy. What Jesus is after here is all of us need the Father's love in our lives. All of us need to hear God's voice over our lives. All of us need God's voice to be the loudest voice in our lives. And Jesus is confident. Every time you saw him sneak away, that's what he's doing. He's listening to the Father. And in fact, his life was a living demonstration of that as he humbled himself and he lived like you and I. And he's saying that is also available to you. You can try to be a master of a lot of things, but the invitation here is you can be a master, you can be a black belt in abiding in God's love, and it'll change everything for you. And the primary invitation here is we do this through the scriptures and then through listening prayer. Listen, my kids go to school And we talk about this a lot. This city does not have the way of Jesus as the primary agenda for your soul. You know that, right? Right? We're aware of that. So my kids go to school, and it's a great school, and we love our teachers and whatever, but I'm also very aware, Danielle and I talk about it all the time, they're exposed at school to all kinds of garbage, all kinds of false ideas, ways of thinking, ways of believing, ways of behaving, false narratives that are out of step with the way of Jesus. There's a lot of good there, but there's also a lot of things that are just out of the step with the way of Jesus. But here's what I know. Every day, my kids come home to my voice and Danielle's voice. And we are making sure over and over again that our voices are the loudest voices in their lives. That what is true is being consistently spoken over them. That the lies are being addressed. That we're checking on their heart. And we're trying to teach them to learn the Father's voice for them. The loudest voice in your life, it matters a lot. Studies show recently that people who began reading the scriptures experienced a 50% decrease in anxiety just from the practice alone. Listen, you want to start just crushing it at life. You want to be a black belt at the things that really matter. You want to go from forms to real life practice. You want to show up at work and start crushing it. You want to get ahead in your field of experience and investment. You want to get ahead as a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad. You want to get ahead as a high schooler or a middle schooler. You want to see some real leverage in the world around you. Get quiet and get into the scriptures every day and let the God of the universe speak into your very life. That's the invitation. Abide in my love. Listen, this is not try really hard to impress me with your faithfulness. This is an invitation. The Father's love is aimed directly at you. Demonstrated. The Christmas story is screaming, God loves you. It's for you. And God's love is already present and it's aimed at your entire life, and abiding in Jesus is the invitation to receive that, to sit in that, to remember it, and then to live from it. This is not try really hard apprenticing, although there is a version of us trying, right? Or rather, training is a better way to say it, right? You don't just get handed a black belt. There's still things you put into practice. Would you agree? Absolutely. But there is a time and a place where you can train so much that it becomes second nature, yes or no? Yes. So what if, rather than having to hold really tight to the forms, you become the kind of person that can naturally move your heart and your mind and your reaction from anxiety to hope and rejoicing? What if you can look at something and all of a sudden your default is no longer, oh crap, what was that form? What was that verse? But all of a sudden, bam, I can just choose joy. I can speak a word of encouragement. I don't have to retaliate when you say something ugly about me. I don't have to lose my stuff on my kids when they test my patience. That's hard, isn't it? Grace is not opposed to training, it's opposed to trying. We're not earning God's favor, we're living from it. Listen, friends, I don't know about you, but Wednesday, man, I crushed it Wednesday. I felt like a black belt, 3rd degree, baby. I mean, I was up at 5 a.m. spending time with Jesus. I had sent 30 texts before the sun had come up. I'm just sending words of encouragement. I'm full of the Holy Spirit. I go throughout my day, and I just feel like my life is spilling the power and the goodness of God everywhere I go. It was amazing. I was like, man, I'm not you, Jesus, but hey, this is pretty good. We're crushing it. I want you to know, Wednesday, I crushed it. God was with me all day. It was amazing. And Thursday freaking crushed me. It was a terrible day. I woke up late. I scrambled to spend time with God. I was reactionary all day. I was in a grumpy mood. I definitely wasn't led by the Spirit. What's up with that? This is the practice that we're talking about. You see, you and I every day get the decision to let different things influence us. So let me give you this last thing, and then I'm going to go ahead and invite Daniel to come. But how do we move this into real-time practice? How do you move from forms that barely touch your whole life to real-time abiding in Jesus? This is the difference between my Wednesday and Thursday this week. And listen, I feel like I'm getting pretty good at this whole following Jesus thing. Again, not perfect, not formed on the inside. I'm a super jacked up individual, and I just desperately need Jesus, so I'm really leaning into that. But here's what I want to give you. I want to give you a very simple look at my day with Jesus, how you abide in Jesus. And listen, what does it mean to follow Jesus? Be with Jesus. Become like Jesus and do what Jesus would do if he were you. You have to ask the question, not what would I do if I were Jesus, don't get it backwards. What would Jesus do if he were me? My stage of life, my gender, my season, my schedule, my singleness, or my family. Like if you got really young kids, right, that dictates one version of it. It's finals week. I get it, right? We got all those things going on. So what would it look like to be with Jesus, become like Jesus, and do what he would do if he were me? Now, with that, I think there are some simple principles we learn from following Jesus I want to give you. So this is my day with Jesus, and I'm telling you, listen, when I hit this rhythm consistently, I'm abiding in Jesus in a way that I don't at other times, and I'm crushing it through the Spirit of God's power in my life. I'm just letting you know. And listen, ask my wife, ask Angela, who's our roommate that lives, like, they know. They know the difference. Just ask. Like, Wednesday, Danielle liked me. Thursday, it was a different story. It was a rough day, guys. I'm just letting you know. And you can have those, right? I'm not like depressed and no, I'm just like, let's try this again, Jesus. I need you. So this is my day with Jesus. It's not a model for you. This is just an example, okay? So in the morning, every day I get up at 5 a.m. because my kids start stirring at like 6:30, and when my house starts moving and everything starts pinging, I cannot get quiet. I'm not a morning person, and so I have a really hardcore discipline to go into bed on time. Otherwise, I got to get 8 hours of sleep, or I'm just like, I'm sucking the next day, okay? So it all starts the day before, but every morning I'm getting up at 5 a.m., and this is what it looks like. The house is completely silent. I make a cup of coffee, and I sit down, and I start with praise and gratitude, or what Jesus called adoration. I just start by simple thanksgiving. God, thank you for this cup of coffee. Thank you for another day. I don't get another one of these today. So whatever, if I got a lot or a little, it doesn't matter. I start with praise and gratitude, and then I do a simple breath prayer, receiving the love of God. God, I'm here and you're here. That's it. I just got to like focus my heart and mind. There's few demands. I don't touch my phone, by the way. It's so important. I don't touch my phone at all until after I spend time with Jesus. I don't want anything else. I want the loudest voice in my life to be the Father's, not anyone else's, right? So I don't touch any of that crap until I've let Jesus speak into my life. So I open up, I start with gratitude, thanksgiving, I start with a breath prayer, I'm here and you're here. And sometimes that's 5 seconds, and sometimes it's 60 seconds, because my mind is spinning and I'm already aware of the 1,000 things on my to-do list that day. Or I'm already discouraged from the day before. I just, God, I'm here and you're here. I'm just trying to receive the love of God, that you're present with me. Then I take time in the scriptures. Every day, I let the scriptures saturate my mind. Especially the New Testament scriptures, but also the Psalms, and I work through the Old Testament. Listen, there are Bibles in the seatbacks in front of you that are our gift to you. There's these little papers all around you, and these are our gift to you if you're online with us. These are on our spiritual resources page as well. On one side is the SOAP Bible reading tool, and on the other side is developing a God time plan. How do I spend time with God every day? Without a plan, listen, you will not drift into formation. You will not drift into a person of love. Most often or not, you will drift away from the things that matter most. You don't accidentally become a black belt. And so the same is true in spiritual formation. Jesus is there, and he's ready, and he wants to deposit so much into you and fill you with his Spirit so you can live your day with meaning and purpose in the will of God. But it starts in the quiet place, to sit in the love of God. So every day I start prayer, gratitude, praise, a breath prayer, and time in the scriptures. I'm in the Corinthians right now. And I just work verse by verse through the New Testament. And I use the SOAP tool every day. This acronym, Scripture, Observation, Application, Prayer. It's right there on the card for you. And that is how do I take the scriptures and move it into my life? How do I not just hear from God, but obey? And from there, I take some time in listening prayer. I just sit and say, God, what do you want me to know today? Anything you want me to do today? Sometimes I'll run through my calendar knowing what I have going on. Is there anything you want to say to me when I go to the gym after this? Or is there a person that's going to be there? Hey, I have this meeting here. Anything you want to say there? And sometimes from that place, I'm sending text messages for someone I felt like I should pray for, or a verse that came to mind. So I take time in the scriptures. Sometimes I'm using a little Devo along the same time. I got this little like daily light devotional that I use as well. It just gives me scripture every day. Or like I'm in an Advent one right now. So whatever. This is just what I do, okay? And I just saturate my mind with what is true from the scriptures, and then let the Spirit of God speak to me. Listen, the Spirit of God is never going to say something in my life and in your life that is contradictory to the scriptures. We trust the voice of God, and we believe he is always speaking. But the primary space that we start is through the scriptures, and we let everything work backwards from that. God, what do you want me to know today? What do you want me to do? And then I have another little journal where I move into asking prayer. There's this book called How to Pray for Your Elephants. And it like gives me a practice of like using different categories of asking prayer. I don't know about you, but my mind is too scattered to like just pray well in silence. Like I sit there and I start thinking about elephants instead of what I'm praying for, right? Like, what's going on? So I have to use lists. And that's why I use a journal too. Like I don't just sit like in silence. I got to write stuff. God's speaking to me. I got to write it down. Otherwise I forget it. So this thing is chock full of all kinds of random crap. that I'm just processing with God, right? Like, and it's not Dear Diary stuff, okay? This is like going to war with God on behalf of others. And so I'm processing all of that, capturing it, and I used a list to pray for individuals and all kinds of different things, asking prayer. And then the last thing I use is a prayer calendar, which we've taught before earlier in the year. It's just every day I've got a different person or a couple different people on that, like day one, or it's got 3 names on it. And so I'm going to send them a text, hey, you're on my prayer calendar today. How can I pray for you? That's it. And from there, I leave. Boom, I'm out the door. And the rest of it here, you guys have that? Thank you. I go to the gym at 6:15. Then I go to work. I'm either washing cars all day or I'm doing city church stuff, like just whatever the day is full of. Home with the fam, evening activities, and then I go to bed on time. Otherwise, I am screwed the next day, okay? I have fallen asleep on Jesus many times because I stayed up late and just I'm not there. And then I do it all over again. Now listen, what I want you to notice is the rest of this day is filled with the fullness of God working in and through me when I let him have this moment. It's not hard to listen and lean into the voice of God when I saturated my mind. I let him have the first word during the day. Now he's the loudest voice. When something flips my world upside down, I can say, God, what do you say about this? I can pause and I can wait before I can react. And I'm telling you, listen, talk to Danielle. I'm not doing this I just want you to know, listen, I'm not trying to impress you with how devout I am. No, listen, I am not a super devoted individual. I'm super jacked up. And I just need God this much. Does that make sense? So you might be better than me, and so you don't need this kind of rhythm. Way to go, you. That's awesome. But I'm telling you, without this, I am living a jacked up, dysfunctional, lack of purpose life. I need God's voice in my life every day. And I would wager so do you. So listen with this. John Tyson says it this way. He says, the enemy's number one priority, that is the devil, the enemy of your soul, the enemy's number one priority for your life is to separate you from the source of love, peace, and joy, so that you are controlled instead by anger, anxiety, and fear. You will not drift into the way of Jesus. You will not drift into a black belt of abiding in God's love, but you can live from it. And you can practice it. You can take the forms from the way of Jesus and move them into your everyday life and watch how it touches your relationships and your dating and your singleness and your finances and your thought life and your actions and your activities and your patterns and your behaviors. And all of a sudden, you just start choosing different things because you're like, man, I don't have time for that anymore. I'm living my best life over here in the way of Jesus, and those are going to have to take a back seat. It is available to you. Abiding in the love of Jesus and living from that place. So, here's your options as we close our time. You can be like everybody else in the world and get up and grind, fill your day with greed and ambition, and then numb yourself in the evening just to do it all over again. Or you can be like others that get up and get distracted and let the device in your hand or in your pocket just saturate your mind with false narratives all day long. And you can wrestle with, the effort that you have of filling your life with fun and trying to numb all of the realities around you and then dealing with guilt and shame in the background and trying to see if you can have a significant life. You can do all of that. Or you can get up and you can meet with God. And you can let him set the narrative for your life and the tone for your life and the direction for your life and earn a black belt in abiding. And from that place, find that there is life to the full on the other side. So those resources are there for you. Make a plan. Those tools are there to help you. But can I just beg you? Don't take a vacation from God in the coming weeks. Rest well, delight well, enjoy well, travel well, but don't settle for a mediocre soul and a mediocre walk with God. You have excellence in so many other areas of life. Why not in this one? Why not let it touch every other area? The God of the universe is leaning in, ready to speak into your very life. So why not let him? Let's pray. God, thank you so much for this church. Thank you so much for your Spirit. Thank you so much for your scriptures and for what is true. Thank you so much that you have life to the full on offer for us. Jesus, you came to save and to set free, not only to redeem what is broken, but to make things new and to bring healing over the things that have been sabotaged by us and by others, to bring horizontal and vertical healing across the board in our lives. And Jesus, it is hard work. But over time, we can learn, we can become the kinds of people that can abide in your love and live from that place and love others and be like you and do the stuff that you would do. Jesus, there is a world around us that knows nothing of this love and this power unless we were to show them through our very lives. And that is your confidence, Jesus. That it is this life working and spilling the banks of our own lives that other people come to know you. That you have put us all in places where we live, work, and play for the sake of influence, of being a light in the middle of darkness. Not our own light, but yours that screams through our lives and our words and our actions and our behaviors and our responses. So Jesus, would you speak to us today and lead us into the life that is truly life, and help us to adopt some of the practices that move into our real lives. It's in Jesus' name. Amen.